You started your presidency in 1992. Andy and I started doing this show in 1993, and so I have some appreciation for, in that span of time, how much things have changed. Now, you were out there campaigning hard last year at this time. You probably, I'm curious, did you think you saw a different America than the one that you had seen when you were campaigning back in 1992? Do you think we have profoundly changed since then?
Yes and no. That is, I think the good news is, and I know it's hard to see and was totally unfashionable to talk about in 2016, but the country is much more diverse than it used to be. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good thing. We are still... We're still, compared to other wealthy countries, relatively young. And having lost it, I can tell you, youth matters. That is, the median age of the workforce is a big deal in terms of the economic potential of a country. So, and since the birth rate of native-born Americans of all races is just barely at replacement level, we need immigrants to come in and keep diversifying the country and helping us grow. But that's better. Now, so the thing that's not so good is that we're in the middle of a revolution. Yeah, well, there is that.
Yeah.
But
excuse me, I'm sorry. Sir, we know.
Yeah. Believe me, I know, especially today.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're in the middle of this transition of how we get our information, how we communicate, and the pattern of economic growth has heavily favored people with more education and heavily favored people without regard to their education level if they live in or around cities that are growth centers. So, for example, in the last election, President Trump won all these rural counties. He got 46% of the vote. They comprised 36% of the GDP of the country. The counties Hillary carried comprised 64% of the GDP of the country. Even though the median income of a Trump voter was slightly higher than the median income of a Hillary voter, the people who voted for her were people who were hopeful about the future, believed in the assets of the country, believed we could grow together and go together, and we're basically more resistant to the bizarre nature of the way the election was covered. They just looked at the debates and they looked at the conventions and they made a choice. And so I think that what all of us have to do is, no matter how happy some of us are about what happened yesterday in the elections, we have to remember that the founders told us our job was to create a more perfect union. So we have to bridge these economic divides. Just like we asked the people on the other side of the social divide to help us bridge the social divide. We have to create inclusive economics, inclusive societies, and we need an inclusive culture. And then we need to tell all these people that just make up stuff on the internet to knock it off, that we're voting for people who are going to do jobs. These are jobs. And as soon as somebody gets one of these jobs, you find out pretty quick that the decisions they make have consequences that affects people's lives. And so it matters what you know, and even more important, it matters how you think. Whether you're conservative or liberal, do you believe this is an interdependent age and we can't escape each other? Then you got to decide which is more important, our interesting differences or our common humanity. And that's the conclusion I draw. But it is different, and it's way better in some ways and much more troubling in some ways.
Yeah.
And the dictators club in the world, and there's a bunch of them, you know, they want two things. They want nuclear weapons because they feel like they can never be dislodged no matter how much people hate them if they got nuclear power. And they want to abolish the line between fact and fiction and truth and lie. Because they figure if you don't know what's true and you don't think you can ever know, that pretty soon everybody will accept the fact that democracy is no longer possible.
Right. Are you talking about foreign countries now or here? Because that's
well,
That chilled me to the bone for a second. I thought we were in Korea.
Look, all I can tell you
You
is...
just said a lot by saying nothing.
No, but look at the effort here to disenfranchise voters, to make it harder for young people, for people of color, for the elderly, infirm, who are poor and vulnerable, for all kinds of people to vote. Just the reason there's no immigration reform is because the people who are against it are afraid it would adversely affect their electoral prospects. If more people who work and pay taxes could also vote. And when the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act, they made a terrible mistake because it unleashed all these efforts to basically try to shrink the electorate. But those of you who don't like it should own some responsibility if you have ever missed a midterm election.
Yeah.
Because that's when most of the governors are elected. That's when most of the legislators are elected. So we all got to own up here. We need to just go out and start going up to people who are mad at us and say, look, let's get over it. We got to live together. We got to share this together. And if we work together, we'll have better economics, we'll have better societies, and we'll have a culture that we can all be a part of.